Hey everyone, it's Michael. I decided to go ahead and respond already to a topic that was popped up on one of my videos from a really good friend of mine. I won't use his name here. I did use his name in one of my older videos a long time ago. I try not to use his name. He isn't very comfortable with that. But regardless, a friend of mine actually asked me, he's an atheist, and he wanted to know what my opinion is on how old I think the world is. Immediately as a Christian, I have to respond that I do believe the world is around 6,000 to 7,000 years old. Usually around 6,000, I would say. I haven't sat down and done the mathematics, but I'm also one of those people that completely disagree with this gap theorem that everybody seems to use. It seems like any bit of logic that we try to use on the world to really describe how old the world is, there's a giant gap there that doesn't make any sense. Whether we're talking through the theory of evolution, or if we're talking about, people that seem to think the theory of evolution fits in with Christianity and how God created the world in 6 days and then took the seventh day to rest. People seem to think each day is like a billion years. I don't know where people are getting these time frames from. It's one of those typical ideas of how Satan has totally just blown us away with how he keeps delving into people's minds and twisting facts around and making people think that this ideology, this thing, evolution, it's necessarily more of a religion than it is an actual theory. Well, it's a theory regardless, but it's more of a religion than it is a fact. And that's the problem with it. That's what I've always kind of stood against it for. It's one of those things that I've never understood how people get away with teaching that in school. And mainly the reason people have to teach this is not only, I think people don't only just want to know where we came from, or what we are, or why we're here. That's a lot of what I think is put into the evolution theory and why that's there. But I feel like a lot of people seem to, at the same time, want to have this idea that they have to know how long we've been here, why we still haven't went farther than we seem to have gone so far. It's because we're humans, and we're limited. The evolution theorem has always been kind of odd to me. Like I said, I haven't been a Christian all of my life. I've only been a Christian for about, 2 years? Yeah, around that, and I have my kind of in and outs where I don't stay as faithful to God as I should. I get a little too worldly. It's a big struggle I think all Christians kind of have in some way, shape, or form. Everyone has their struggle, their sin that just keeps, attacking them. That's mine. I have a lot of trouble of staying in the mindset of a Christian and what I should do as a Christian. When it comes to the world theory, though, and how old the world is, a lot of people like to bring up, especially towards Christians and their belief on this idea, dinosaurs. How does that fit in there? Well, it's really not that complicated. It's one of those things, yes, they are extinct, but there's plenty of things like polar bears and whatnot that are going extinct now. What's to say that back in the day when in Genesis, I think it's Genesis 6, in the first few verses, they're speaking, or I think it was God speaking. I'm pretty sure it was, because God's like getting ready to do the flood, the Noah's flood. He's getting ready to do that, and he's talking about giants walking on the earth. And how the sons of God, which apparently is like spirit world stuff, like demons and whatnot, were mating with human beings. And a lot of people seem to have that theory idea too, that maybe the Antichrist will be born into the world like that, by this spirit and human kind of, mating thing, The thing with me is that I'm kind of like, if you have things like that, like giants literally being born out of human beings that were like the descendants of Adam and Eve, what's to say that, there weren't dinosaurs, giant lizards, even though there's tiny lizards and frogs and whatnot? What's to say that that didn't exist at one point, and that maybe the Noah's flood took them out, and we're just now finding the bones in, all of these recent years, and like since the 20s or whatever, since we started digging them up, and we still find them to this day, and they're hidden layer upon layer upon layer, enough layer that would have probably happened from a flood, which would have had to have probably been a world catastrophic kind of thing. It's kind of a tricky little thing to delve into. Especially if you haven't done enough research on it. As a Christian, I mean, the evolution people and the atheists seem to have every little bit angle trying to figure that out. But a lot of my support also comes from a guy that I literally just started watching a couple of days ago, and I'm really, really, really impressed with what I've heard from him so far. Dr. Kent Hovind, I believe is his name. I really like him. I really, really, really respect him. He's a scientist, but at the same time is a creationist also. He delves into a lot of tearing apart the evolution theorem and how it's more of a religion than it is an actual fact, or anything for that matter. The thing with me is that I kind of agree with him. All of these steps that Christians have used to kind of break down the idea of evolution to explain that to people, like how, for example, dogs apparently have a common ancestor with bananas according to science, but there's no real backup proof to that. It's beyond belief, honestly. It's one of those things. People have such a problem with believing in a being that has been around for only God knows how long, pretty much forever, from what we can take from the Bible. God's been eternal. He is love. He is kindness. He's everything that you'd want from God. And at the same time, he's a jealous God, God, I don't see how people can have this struggle to believe in him, whereas they can believe in these things that are such a giant stretch when it comes to the evolution theorem. You have like the first 5 steps out of the 6 steps of evolution that completely have, like, no one has any proof for them. I don't care what scientist tells you what. There's no proof for the first 5 steps at all. At all. And it's shameful how they try to make up things to try to convince people. I don't mean to delve too much into the evolution theory, kind of tearing it apart and discussing it and whatnot. I don't know. I'm the first person to tell you I'm not a professional on this. I'm just explaining my opinion on this. I don't know how people can make such a stretch, and, science by definition is the observation of something, we can't observe that stuff. And if we weren't around all of those billions of years, how did we record that, aside from just assumption? How does that happen? How do we let that happen and let that be taught in school? Because at the same time, the same people that do believe in what I consider this an idol, they'll sit there and tell you that your assumption that God exists is because of just, human chemicals in your brain and whatnot. It's just silly. The defense for evolution makes no sense half the time. And like I said, I'm not delving too much into that. I'm trying to swerve away from that and make this video a little bit less lengthy than my other videos have been here recently. I don't know how it's such a problem for people to believe that the world is so young. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what the deal is. Why is that such a problem? Who cares? A lot of the terrain, everything. And we can see what a flood can do in, like, Haiti, or in the Hurricane Katrina. We saw how much destruction that had. Can you imagine if the impact of that happened and destroyed so much in those areas? Can you honestly tell me that a worldwide flood wouldn't cause the terrain that we have now? I mean, generally, can you honestly sit there and tell me that? I don't know how we could possibly believe that. And then people use, of course, the carbon dating argument and everything else to try to prove things. I don't even understand how people can begin to believe in that system either. It's one of those things, once again, it's more of a stretch of assumption than anything, and that's the biggest problem with a lot of science when it comes to debating creationism. I can't talk today. I'm so sorry, guys. It's very early in the morning. Forgive me. That's one of the biggest problems with a lot of science that I've encountered when I was in high school. They would teach it to you as if it's fact, but then turn around and call it a theory. Make your mind up. How come we're allowed to teach things that haven't been proven? That there's no way to ever prove them, aside from, just outright faith in one or another, which also goes by definition of religion. It's just crazy. It's nonsensical to me. But like I said, my own opinion, a lot of the things people mention, like the dinosaurs, for example, to try to disprove creationism and disprove God, when it comes to the book of Genesis and creation in 7 days, I don't get why that's such a problem. I mean, even the scientists will argue that the world had to come from nothing. The universe had to come from nothing. If that's the case, that's literally the same case that the Bible, tells of with God. That he created us from nothing. And I'm not trying to combine, the theories of evolution and creationism and say, okay, the Big Bang was God's, his power doing that. And then it took all those billions of years to do that. No, I don't believe that. The Big Bang might just be another word to use for when God just snapped his fingers and everything came into, life and living. But, like I said, I believe more amongst that idea, because it makes more sense than all of these stretching assumptions on things that just kind of popped up out of nowhere, you know. I have not read Darwin's book. I wanted to at one time, and I feel like even now, it's from the things I've heard about, especially from people like Kent Hovind, that I don't think that there's anything really there worth reading. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mean to sound disrespectful, but I don't really, you know, I look up enough Christian versus atheism debates and evolution versus creationism debates on YouTube all the time to kind of be able to delve into that, you know, that argument and be able to hear enough to where I can be like, yeah, I understand where I'm coming from, but I don't know where they're coming from half the time. But yeah, that's pretty much my answer. I hope the person that requested this actual, this particular topic will probably look into Kent Hovind himself. He's here on YouTube, if you want to look him up. Just type in Kent Hovind and go over to the channels thing, and it should be Kent Hovind Official, you know, in capital letters. That should be his channel name. I would go on there and watch a lot of his stuff. One of his best videos that I've been watching in the last couple of days that I really, really like, it's a series, I think he did it's either in the late 90s or early 2000s. I could be wrong. I don't really know. At one point he mentioned, well, I'm looking at the copyright right here. It might have been 2005 and they just did it on webcams. I don't know. But it's called Dr. Kent Hovind Answering the Critics, Show 2. It's on another channel called Slaves for Christ. I really like what he does here. He basically, for an hour-long stretch, sits with his son at laptops and, like, talk to callers and whatnot. They go on websites that are, like, anti-Hovind, which, you know, is he himself, websites, and they kind of debate things that critics and atheists and whatnot have thrown into his face. There was one point in the first video alone that he got a caller that he was arguing with her over the evolution is a religion debate. And he kind of stuck it to her. I mean, it was amazing to me because I really respect the things that this particular scientist is saying. He so far has been biblically, I can't talk. I'm so sorry. So far, he has been biblically accurate and sound, from what I can tell. Like I said, he's one of those people that generally knows what he's talking about when it comes to doing this research. Like I said, don't take my word on it, person that requested this topic. Go sit down and watch some of his stuff. The one problem I feel like a lot of people, atheist or not, Christian especially, is that they aren't looking into the other side's argument enough. You know, and like I said for a long time, one of the biggest hang-ups for a lot of people about God is how he could be love. He could literally be love and be so just and wonderful, but send people to hell. That's one of those questions that aren't debatable. I understand where people are coming from that. I understand that empathy, but I have my own counterintuitive answers or not counterintuitive. I have my own counter answers that I can throw to you to try to try to beat that answer down. But people are still going to be, you know, kind of holding that particular statement against God. Whereas Kent Hovind can kind of actually do research and actually has these ideas that go against things like the evolution theory that can actually talk about this stuff. I'm just really impressed with a lot of the things I've heard from this particular guy. Don't go on YouTube and type in, you know, proof that God exists. That's not doing research. Don't even try that crap, because you're probably going to find somebody that's going to sit there and just tell you over and over again that Jesus is your savior. Now, as much as I admit that, yes, that is the truth and that is the answer, sometimes that's not enough for people. And a lot of people, especially this particular friend of mine that asked for this particular topic about the world and time, oh, look, I'm closing in on 15 minutes. The particular person that requested this topic, that would not be enough for them. Look into actually doing your own science from these angles. You can't just listen to what schools are telling you. You can't go by that. And you can't go by what scientists are telling you. And to be honest, if you've looked into science, and you've looked at some of the top scientists in the entire world are creationists, Christian or not. I don't know what to tell you about that, but pretty much all of them are creationists and believe that an almighty being had to create this. It's a very debatable topic. It's one of those tricky things. I didn't mean to delve too much into creationism versus evolution, but I feel like when you're talking about the genesis of all mankind, you have to. And amongst that, I mean everything in the world. The universe, you know, you have to talk about stuff like that and delve into those two theorems. But anyway, I hope particular person that requested this topic, I hope maybe I could give you some light, some kind of answer here, some kind of new light to kind of look at this from. Like I said, please look into Kent Hovind's work. I really, really, really recommend this guy. He's a good, godly man, and I thank him for all of his research and the good things that he's done. Anyways, thank you guys so much for this particular topic, and I hope that if anybody has any more questions of a new topic they'd like me to cover, whether it be the same person that requested this video or not, I hope you'll put it in the comments section below and let me know, and I can get back to you as soon as I can. It'll probably be a day or two until I can come back and make another video, but I had the day off today, so I'm going to make a couple of videos and get out there and talk to you guys. Thank you so much, and God bless you guys, and goodbye.